What's up, guys? It's Ian. Um, Welcome back to another overview of Lord of the Flies. Today we'll be going over Chapter 7, and real excited to hop into it. So let's hop into it. The chapter opens, right, with what is it? Let me look at my book because I've got a book, and I've been writing notes down in this book, and so it's like that's what I've been looking at off camera. Right, okay. So kind of re-familiarizing myself. The chapter opens with kind of a scene of dangerous imagery. What is it? They're scurrying across the mountain, trying to go around a part of the, what is it, coast, I guess, that not even Jack has explored before. And it's kind of treacherous, and it's kind of a dangerous thing. And the book, it really takes its time in this chapter, kind of moving through this path. And it uses this path as kind of a device for Jack and Ralph to kind of play off one another and kind of be like, well, really what it is in the last chapter, Jack had a lot of the control. And in this chapter, Ralph takes that control from Jack. And that really creates what the rift ends up being between the two of them near the end of the story. Right. And so, what is it? The imagery is dangerous, and that's really kind of to keep the reader's head in the same space. Oh, they're still hunting a monster. Oh, they still think that they're in danger. Oh, they still think that they have X, Y, or Z as the problem, right? And so, um, as they're walking along, sorry, Ralph is prone to daydreaming, and we kind of get a look inside his head as to what he's been daydreaming about while they've been on the island. And so what Ralph has been daydreaming about is his family and how they used to be. There's really, at least in this chapter, a focus on how his family used to be. And in this kind of daydream that we get from Ralph, he kind of goes in, the author, narrator kind of goes into a little bit about how Ralph's mother seems to be absent in his life, and how Ralph's father is out for work often, right? In his daydream, he specifically goes back to a time where, quote, "Mummy was still with us, and Daddy would come home from work every day, right? Or every afternoon." And so he kind of has that kind of daydream while they're walking on the path. But before that, they stop, right, and they have this little uh, rest period. And Ralph is like, as they're walking along the path, they find some fruit, and they're like, "All right, let's take a break." And Ralph starts thinking, "Dude, this sucks." Right? Like, you can't brush your teeth, can't take a shower, can't wash your clothes. The only reason they're wearing clothes is because it's a custom, because it's something that reminds them of normalcy, right? And so it's like their clothes are gross, their skin is covered in like salt and seawater, and their faces are only kind of clean because of sweat, but you can still see accents of grime on their faces. And so this is kind of, I feel, a tool that the author uses along the story to kind of show, like, because this is a more in-depth example of what Ralph misses, right? And so Ralph is kind of seen as a speakerhead for the rest of the story. And so, it's kind of just like, well, if Ralph's feeling this way, the others must be feeling this way too. So that was kind of my point going on there. Um, And while they're taking the break, what is it? Simon kind of speaks up. And I was thinking about Simon a little bit. Simon speaks up and he kind of talks to Ralph, and he's like, "Ralph, you'll make it out of here. It's not an issue." And Ralph kind of is like, "Well, how do you know that?" And Simon's like, "Well, I just think." I just think you will, because you're a leader, because this, because of that, because of the other thing, whatever. But I got kind of interested, and I feel like I'll probably do a little bit of a story about how or not a story, make a video about kind of the different uses of characters in Lord of the Flies. So be on the lookout for that. What is it? Um, okay, after they have their break, what is it? A boar lunges at the group, right? and the boar kind of, I think it gets Jack. That's not super clear, but I think it gets Jack. And Ralph sticks it. He tosses his spear, and he sticks it with. He sticks the boar in the nose with his spear, and he kind of is like, "Oh wow, this is exhilarating. This is really cool. I kind of understand why Jack has this almost unhealthy obsession with hunting is because it's super fun, right? He threw it in there. He like saw it that it's stuck, and it's like, dude, that is something measurable that I did on this island, right? It's something that doesn't ultimately lead to anything, because the boar gets away, and they kind of waste some time thinking about whether or not to go after the boar or not. But it does create this group where or the situation where the group gets extremely excited off of Ralph's energy because Ralph got it. And so, and then what is it? One person, Robert. Robert is who it was. Robert starts volunteering to act like the boar, and the group circles around him and starts kind of just beating him. Like it's kind of a weird scene, and it's part of that like removal from civilization idea that the story is going for, right? And so you've got that, and you've got this big group of kids all around this other kid who was just acting like a pig, and now they're actually like beating him. And the kid is like, "Ow!" He's saying like, "Ow, stop!" He's telling them that they're hurting him. They just don't care. They start singing the thing about cutting the pig's throat and letting it bleed. They're singing their chant. They're doing this, that, and the other thing, and it's chaos. As a reader, I got a little uncomfortable during this scene because I was like, "Oh my god, are they about to murder this kid?" You know, and this also acts as foreshadowing for later in the story, but we'll get to that when we get to that. And so I would like to kind of draw attention. I probably already did a little bit earlier, but what is it? The narrator brings a lot of attention. There's a lot of time spent describing the scene and describing the path they take, and I think that's intentional. It's one facet. It's kind of filler. It feels like filler. It doesn't super feel like it needs to be there, but it also does at the same time, and that's because what is it? You get to this point where the boys are starting to get tired, right? They're starting to get tired of going along through this trek. And honestly, reading that portion of the story was tiring for me. And so it's kind of like on a two level, when it's kind of immersing the reader in that kind of like, what is it? In that path. Um, a lot of explanations going into the path, and that was my main point. And then they meet and they break another time, right? And they are saying, "Oh, somebody should let Piggy know that we'll be coming home after dark because the entirety of the group's older population went to hunt the beast in the last chapter, right?" And so, um, what is it? They start getting through the thing and walking through the path, and they send someone off to go tell Piggy that they're going to be late. And what is it? Jack and Simon have this, or not Jack and Simon, Jack and Ralph have this weird moment where Jack and Ralph both understand that control from the group has been taken away. Control of the group has been taken away from Jack, and Ralph has kind of reasserted himself during the situation where Jack kind of understood he was supposed to be the leader, right? And so, Jack gets really mad at that, and he kind of holds on to that anger throughout the rest of the chapter. I didn't take a lot of notes after this point in the chapter, but Ralph actually uh, point blank asked Jack, "Why do you hate me?" And it's fairly obvious. Jack has a clear distaste for Piggy, and he has a clear distaste for anything that he doesn't like want to do. So, you have things like that. Um, what happens is eventually the group gets to uh, back to camp, right? Because it's on the way back up to the mountain, and almost the entirety of the group of boys, they stop and they're like, "What should we do?" Ralph says, "We should stop here, go to bed, because it's almost not, it's basically dark now." Um, So Ralph says we should stop, go to bed. It's the smart thing to do, right? We'll get back on it tomorrow. And Jack's like, I'm going. You know, he's like, he's trying to assert his dominance. He's trying to assert that he is a leader, and he's trying to say, I think you're doing this wrong. I think that you are doing this in a way that's not right. And, you know, it's almost like a challenge to Ralph. It's a challenge to Ralph's leadership. And so Ralph has to go along with Jack up the mountain, and the boys are going up the mountain, and they get to a point where Jack and Ralph and third kid son, Roger has joined them, right? And so you're at this point in the story where you've got three kids going up the mountain, and then they all stop, and Ralph's like, "Dude, why are we doing this? This is kind of pointless. There's only three of us." Even though, um, what is it? The whole point of them going up was to like kind of assert who was the more dominant figure. Ralph is obviously painted as the one who's more of a leader, more of a thinker, right? Someone who kind of assesses what's going on more. And so there's that. And then you have Jack, who goes up to the top of the mountain by himself, right? Because Ralph and Roger are like, you know what? We'll fucking wait for you right here. Whoops. Um, he's like, we'll wait for you right here. And so you've got that. And so Jack goes up to the top of the mountain, and then he comes back down. He's like, I saw it. I saw something move. I saw something. What's the word? I can't remember the word, but it's like I saw something. And Roger jokingly compares it to like a frog, because it might be just a massive frog. And then because Jack saw it, the other two and all three of them go climb up the mountain, and what is it? A gust of wind blows the whole time they're climbing up the mountain. It's super windy, and there's ash blowing down on them, and it's really just not a great situation to be in. But you get to the top of the mountain, and Ralph is paralyzed. Not really with fear. He's not really afraid. He's just like, there's so much crap going on. And then on top of that, there's this figure on the other side of the mountain, or at the top of the mountain, that they don't really understand. Um, and so they go and they go up and they see it, and the thing sits up, and they see his face. And then what is it? All three of them dart back down the mountain, and they're all done. So that was my overview of chapter 7 of Lord of the Flies. If you're reading along, please put in the comments anything you might have missed. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit a like, put a like on that. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye.